Hey guys, it's Tanye, and I'm gonna talk about Kanye. So, I on my Instagram, I asked if people had questions about Kanye. I got more text messages on Friday when the album released than I did on my birthday previously in the week, and so I appreciate you guys for thinking about me. But here's what I want to do. You please put this in double time speed because no one needs to spend time listening to me about this. But most of the questions, there's going to be a couple of episodes of this, so like and subscribe. But first of all, I just wanted to give you all the backstory of what's happening. I think that's going to answer a lot of your questions. And so a lot of people just kind of want to know my general thoughts. And my general thoughts date months back, years back. And so I'm going to fill you in on the backstory so that everything will kind of make sense to you now. And so obviously about 3 years ago, Kanye had like some mental issues and was in the hospital for a little bit. And he, from that phase on, he really struggled with some emotional things and some mental issues. And and it came out in his album. So he put out Yeezus, which was crude, and then he put out Yay a couple years ago, which in summer 2017, that was just dark and like showed his emotional issues. He's always been like, he's always talked about it and never hidden it really. He's been pretty public about it. And so we knew that was going on. It obviously like shadowed his work and his albums. And so that's a lot of times when people say I like the old Kanye, that's what they're talking about. Like when he wasn't like burdened by all these things and he kind of just had a story to tell and he was clever and quippy and had these little like inside jokes in his lyrics. And so that kind of, there wasn't a lot of that in the last few years. It was just sad. And so he'd been having some issues. Well, so in January, he starts doing these Sunday services and in the LA area, and he at his house and so he has these people over to these choirs that would practice all week, and then they would remake some of his own lyrics, and some like Kid Cudi, some other artists would come in, and there was no real preaching. It was just gospel music and gospel choirs. And so that kind of like, they just experimented with that. And everyone was like, oh, he's starting a church. It's a cult. It's an invite only, whatever. Well, yeah, it's like at his house or at his, like these small places. And so he couldn't just open it up to the public. And it was just kind of like him, like messing around, like a hot side hobby or something. But he was like digging it. And he had like a producer named Ant Clemens who is strong in his faith. He was helping him. Some other people were helping him. And it just kind of gained some momentum. And so by the time April rolled around, I think he was invited to Coachella to perform and he turned it down, but then they invited him to do a Sunday service, the 2 Sundays of Coachella, one of which was Easter Sunday. And so Easter Sunday, I was on YouTube Live watching Coachella Live to watch what the Sunday service would look like. And there was some preaching, some like scripture, and it was all very legit in my opinion. I didn't watch the whole thing, but probably an hour of it. And I was pretty impressed with what they were saying. And the doctrine seemed accurate from what I was listening to. And so, but the bulk of it was just like gospel songs, gospel music. There were some remakes of some of Kanye's old stuff, but it wasn't always old Kanye stuff. Some of it was like gospel music. So that was April, the week after Easter. So late April 2019, Kanye says that's when he came to Christ. He said he was burdened by the weight of his sins and he turned to Jesus. He started following Jesus. We know this because a few weeks later, the beginning of June, the first week of June, he sat in the office of a pastor named Adam Tyson. And Adam Tyson has recently done one interview where he kind of shares his side of the story. And so Adam Tyson is a guy that grew up in Georgia, went to PA school, was a physician's assistant. Then he went to the master's seminary under John MacArthur in LA area. And then got a youth pastor job in Montgomery, Texas, close to Houston. And then then was called to pastor a church in the LA area. And so it's a small church, around 200 people. And it's not like glitzy or glamorous. So this isn't like a Carl Lentz situation, Judah Smith situation. This is a dorky white guy that went to John MacArthur's seminary. And so surely he's preaching the word. In fact, most of the people that go to that church are teachers at the Master's College or the Master's Seminary, and students at the Master's College or the Master's Seminary. So that's most of the 200 people. Two of the people that go to his church, one is a woman who nannies some for Kim, and her husband is a guy that was working for Adidas and had kind of worked with Kanye on a couple of little projects. And so a couple that's familiar with the Kardashians, with Kim and Kanye. And so they had invited him to church. Kanye had obviously been like on this spiritual journey for years, but obviously this last year or so has been super significant. And so he goes to this church, and after the service, he meets in the office with Adam across from Adam's desk. And he says, hey, I think 5 weeks ago I came to Christ. And Adam says, well, let's talk about that. And so for 3 hours, Adam presents the gospel to Kanye for 3 hours. And Kanye's like, yeah, that's what I did, and that's what I want to do. And so he's like, okay. So they start meeting up every Tuesday. Adam would go to Kanye's house, and they would study the Bible together. And so at one point, Kanye's like, hey, I can't rap anymore. And Adam's like, why? He says, because that's the devil's music. I can't do that. And he says, no, you can still rap. You just need everything in your life. You need to figure out, how am I doing this for God's honor, for God's glory? And so Kanye says, okay, then Adam, brother Adam, teach me how. Tell me how to do that for God's honor. And so he invites Adam to come sit in the studio with him. And so as he's writing this album that was just released on Friday, Adam's in there, and he is critiquing the lyrics theologically. And so he's helping Kanye see what's true about Jesus, what's not true about Jesus, what's true about Kanye, what's true about the faith journey, and what's not, based off of these lyrics that Kanye has coming out. Or he would like say, hey, this isn't very clear. I don't understand what you're saying here, which I bet that was a lot of conversation, since he's this dorky white guy sitting in the studio with Kanye West. But regardless, that's what happened. And so over the course of the last few weeks and months, Kanye's been working on this album, Jesus is King, and Adam's been helping him with that as far as just reviewing the content. And so a few things that came out on the big 2-hour interview that Apple Music did. It's a fascinating interview, and so if you have the time, you should go watch it. But everything Kanye said, there wasn't anything that I was like, that's wrong theologically. I think Adam's like got him straight. And he says, I'm a recent convert and I don't know the Bible super, super well. And so I might say something that's wrong here, but don't judge me too harshly. Basically, I'm still figuring this out. And so he asked his staff, the crew that was working on the album, he asked them not to abstain from premarital sex while they were working on his album. He didn't let them cuss in there. And so, yeah, so everything I've seen from all of this has been like very impressive. I think it's legit. I think he's legit. I think he's been taking steps. You might have seen a clip from Keeping Up with the Kardashians a couple weeks ago where Kanye asked him about dressing so sexy. They just finished the Met Gala, and she had like a total Kim dress on, and he was like, hey, I feel like that dress was too sexy. And she was like, whoa, I'm kind of not there yet. I know you're like growing in your faith, but I think it was okay. So a lot of you, I asked on my Instagram if y'all had questions. 36 people reached out to me with questions. And so I hope this lets you sleep at night tonight, me answering this. But a lot of people wanted to know just my general thoughts. A lot of people wanted to know, is he a real believer? Is this for real? Is it fake? Is it a phase? Is it just for publicity? I mean, Kanye's definitely a marketing genius, but I think he obviously was ready to give up rap if he was like, I'm done. And so I don't think I think it's good production. I think it's good music. I think it's very short songs on all his album. I'll go into more on my thoughts on the album later, but I think it's real. I think time will tell with anybody's faith journey. Time will tell, validate it or invalidate it in essence. And so, but I think that he has shown, if you look in First John and look to see the test of true belief, I think he's taking steps towards godliness in a very private, but also obviously it's got to be public to some degree way. And he doesn't really care. He's ready to go at it alone, even if nobody's going to like walk with him. I think he is undergirded by the word. I think he's like learning the word and like building his faith on that. I think that, so we'll see if it's a phase or not, just with all of us. And then, is Kim a believer? People wanted to know. So this goes into another thing. I'll just end this. I'll end this video. I'm going to have another video that talks about Kim and Kanye, and then another episode that just kind of talks about the actual album, if you are interested in that. But I wanted y'all to know the backstory. If you have any questions, please DM me or text me, or I don't know if you're able to comment on this or not. But that is the end of episode 1, Tanye on Kanye.